We are finally back with another episode of Dynasty Theory, Saturday morning edition. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, ignore the banner at the top, live every Tuesday night. That is a bold-faced lie. A lot going on this week. Mitch, you got some new internet. Dan's got sinus infections up the wazoo. I think we're ready to rock and roll, though.
I'm telling you, like, having no internet for 3 days when you have kids now is horrible. Like, we're trying to like hotspot all of their stuff, and it just didn't turn out that well. It sucked.
I mean, we got to see underneath the hat. Do you still have any hair? Did you pull all your hair out?
A little bit.
Okay,
I think I'm all right. Well, it's receding a little bit, my old age.
Yeah, you are getting old.
I
You're
am.
up there. All right, today we're going to talk about some wide receivers. Initially, I had us ready to go with wide receivers and tight ends, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, we can't combine this all into one episode. It is going to take forever. So what we've done in the past, and this has happened every year, Dan called me out on it. What we have done in the past, we went through our running backs, we went through our quarterbacks, wide receivers today. Next Wednesday, so again, a lie, live every Tuesday night. Next Wednesday, we're doing tight ends to start the show, then a fairly fast-paced 2-round mock going into the NFL draft. And then, of course, Mitch, that's all going to get flipped upside down the following week.
And it's episode 200, right?
It is.
Oh,
this week, episode 199. We got 200 next week. No episode the following week. But if you're in our Patreon, it's free for the rest of April. Come check it out. If you don't like it, bounce. $5, instant refund. Join us for the draft party. It's a lot of fun. So a lot going on here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see proud partner of DynastyDaddy.com. I love the website name.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds kind of scandalous.
Little bit.
I promise you it's not. The only it will get you hot and bothered though if you're into the spreadsheets because you can export everything. But it's a really cool feature and website. So just go over, check it out. Whether you have one team, whether you have 1,000 teams, you can look at your portfolio, not just the percentages and your exposure to certain players, but then it does some really cool league assessments in terms of the power rankings, and you can see how things are going in terms of market values based on KTC, FantasyCalc, Dynasty process. So there's really cool information there. Go check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay. Wide receivers, Mitch. How are you viewing this class in general? This is how we've started every episode. Running backs, quarterbacks. If you haven't had a chance, go check out those previous episodes talking about the different position groups. But anyway, wide receivers, Mitch.
Comparing it to previous classes?
Yeah. I mean, how are you viewing this class? And then how do you want to compare it to previous classes?
It's not very good. I just think it doesn't have the top end talent. Right now, we have JSN, who's locked in pretty much as everybody's wide receiver one. Well, his NFL comps, like extremely elite tier. Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Cooper Kupp was the 7th wide receiver taken. Amon-Ra St. Brown went in the 4th round. So, like, I know he's going to be a very, very good slot wide receiver. We just don't see very good slot wide receivers being the wide receiver one and then a tier break to the next one. Because he's like, it's not that he's an absolute physical beast there and like he runs a 4.35 and then he has all those agility scores. He just looks like a very, very solid slot wide receiver. And if that is your wide receiver one in the class, it's not a great class.
I didn't know how you were going to come at this question. And I'm glad that you approached it the way you did because it's bright and early here. I know you just woke up, so maybe there's still some brain fog. But I'm going to challenge that. Okay. And I don't have the cool red flag that Dan usually has. But yes, I will agree to the point that this class, it does not have a Jamar Chase, but not many classes do. In fact, only one did because there's only one Jamar Chase. Anyway, So we're looking at this class. It doesn't have the Jamar Chase from a prospect standpoint. And your wide receiver 1 for fantasy purposes is coming in as primarily a slot receiver. But my argument, the way the NFL is shaping up, you can be a slot wide receiver that demands a high target share. And I hate using the word alpha. I hate it. But we can have a top tier receiver that primarily works out of the slot. Look at these guys, okay? And I included Christian Kirk in here to start, so we'll ease into it. But Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Lockett, Tyreek Hill, all operated out of the slot at least 40% of the time last year. That's top of the list of all receivers with at least 100 targets last year, okay? Godwin was at 73% out of the slot. CeeDee Lamb, coming in as a rookie, operated out of the slot 93% of the time. And I don't think it's crazy to say that Jackson Smith-Njigba is at least on par with CeeDee Lamb coming in as a prospect. So yes, you don't have your Jamar Chase, but you still have a very good prospect in Jackson Smith-Njigba leading the way. And yeah, his 2022, it was completely derailed, but there is hope. What we've seen from Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, you have a wide receiver coming in that outperformed them when all three of them were on the field together.
That's very true. But my only kickback is when Kurt came into the league, when Godwin came into the league, CD had the hype. He was good. I remember what you said about Amon-Ra when he came into the league. Tyler Lockett's never really been of good value.
Whoa. I loved Amon-Ra St. Brown pre-draft.
Pre-draft. I was there with you during our draft party. I know what you said about him. Something about him. I believe it was he's dead to me, if I remember right.
Nah, we deleted the footage. I gotta find that footage and delete it.
But I'm just saying, I'm not saying that JSN is going to be bad in the NFL. I actually think he's going to be very good in the NFL. It's just he's the best prospect we have in this class, and that's my worry. But no, I agree. He could be amazing. He can be better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's no doubt in my mind. But we also know how little value certain guys had coming in the NFL. And it's based off draft capital for sure. But that's my one kickback on this class is there isn't that one guy could be I love him. Especially after JSN. That's my big issue.
Just to clarify, Kevin in the chat saying you didn't need to spend the number 1 rookie wide receiver pick on any of those guys. I wasn't comparing the players. Well, CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, CeeDee did.
CeeDee Lamb you did. But I'm not comparing the players from a draft capital standpoint. I'm comparing it from the pushback that people are saying Jackson Smith-Njigba is a slot receiver. We see guys perform at wide receiver 1 production for fantasy purposes working out of the slot. That was my point there. It wasn't comparing them saying this is where they were going in rookie drafts. But the class in general, I don't want to get too far down the Jackson Smith-Njigba
I know
trade rabbit hole here. But this class in general, I personally see 6 top 40 wide receivers.
That's fair.
Let me rephrase that. Top 40. It's still early, guys. Top 40 NFL draft pick. All right. I see 6 wide receivers going in the top 40.
I think you're right. Top 42, though. I really think if they get drafted that high, they'll probably be top 40 in dynasty rankings as well. I think that's fair.
And I don't think that I'd have to look at the line, but I don't think Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be the first wide receiver off the board in the NFL draft.
Oh, he is.
I don't think he is.
Yeah, he is. There's no doubt in my mind. While you're talking, I'm gonna bring up the odds. I'm pretty sure they're very high too.
Okay, I would love to see what it would be for if you can do Jackson Smith-Njigba, but not going off the board first. But okay, so I have the 6 wide receivers, and if you are in the Patreon, which I encourage everybody to come check it out, at least for the rest of the month. Again, it's free. But I have my rookie spreadsheet, everything in there. I have a pre-draft score, post-draft score with expected draft capital for the incoming rookies, but it's all based on threshold scoring. So I have all these different criteria that I want these guys to meet. Any prospect across the board, whatever position, and it's going to vary position to position. But pre-draft, post-draft, and you'll see, Mitch, since I'm always tinkering and I'm always looking to improve it. So with wide receivers, I actually, with the draft capital standpoint, going down even into the fourth round, early fourth round, can still be okay. So that goes back to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yep. Yeah, you looked that up. I mean, slot, and that was specifically, you were looking at slot wide receivers that perform, because I think, wasn't Tyler Boyd someone we were looking at before that? I'm trying to remember. There was someone.
Hunter Renfrow was one. Amon-Ra St. Brown. But historically, guys that slip in the NFL draft, I'm not saying by any means this is going to be Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's a first round wide receiver. But historically, there's a little bit more leeway that if you slip in the NFL draft, you can still be a fantasy producer if you're working primarily out of the slot, compared to a guy that's lining up out wide. But before you mention the line, I'm assuming you have it.
I do.
So the top bucket since 2021, all these guys fall in the top bucket. And again, these aren't rankings. This is just a threshold where these guys are being categorized for me. Post-draft grades: Treylon Burks, Jamar Chase, Jamison Williams, Rashad Bateman, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Chris Olave, Drake London, Jahan Dotson, Addison, Smith-Njigba, Devontae Smith, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Hyatt, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I still have 4 guys in that top bucket. It's just, if you're looking at it from a ceiling, they're not all the way up there.
Yeah.
But again, that's okay. Everybody wants these guys to come in. And how often do we say, Mitch, that the value of rookie picks is driven by quarterbacks and running backs? But now the biggest thing being held against this class, not only is it what it cost to acquire these picks last year, but, well, look at the wide receivers. They suck. They're trash. They're garbage. Okay, but we look at every class. It's not the wide receivers that drive the value.
I wonder if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't, I mean, he's going to be the 101 in every 1 QB dynasty draft next year. It's just going to happen because he's absolutely amazing. I wonder if he wasn't in that class, if people would be hating this class as much, just knowing what kind of talent is coming out next year. But that's neither here nor there right now. I have a question for you. So Jackson Smith-Njigba is the favorite at minus 300 right now.
Okay.
So pretty much 3-1, which is pretty high.
Okay.
Who do you think people have as the second wide receiver off the board at plus 333?
Well, based on the way you're phrasing that, is it Cedric Tillman?
Zay Flowers.
I was gonna say it's gotta be. Where is Jordan Addison?
Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston are next at plus 700.
What site are you on? I gotta lock something.
This is SI Sportsbook, but I saw it on a couple different sites. This was the only one I could actually click through. Jalen Hyatt, guy I'm falling in love with. He's 5th. I love it. Love it.
Let me say, would it surprise me if Jackson Smith-Njigba is the first? No, but especially at those odds, I'll take a flyer on
bets today.
Yeah, I'll take a flyer on Jordan Addison.
All right.
Anyway,
where are we?
So we're talking about this class. Once it comes down to it, and we're in the second round of rookie drafts, and we're in the early third, there's going to be a lot of intriguing wide receivers. If you're in a 2 PPR league for tight ends, I'm far more willing to invest and take the chance on the profiles there, which we're going to talk about on Wednesday next week, and the running backs than a lot of the wide receivers we're going to see in the second round range.
Well, even
let me rephrase the mid to late second round range. Yeah. I still want a lot of those receivers going early second.
But your draft philosophy pretty much is in 3rd and 4th round. You don't take a lot of wide receivers anyways, right? You
for the most part,
the running backs.
I have certainly gravitated towards going with a lot of the tight ends. I mean, I have a lot of Chiggy. I have a lot of Cole Turner. Let's not talk about that one.
I remember that one.
Even though I wasn't a huge fan, I have a lot of Isaiah Likely just because I'm in tight end premium. We're talking one PPR, one tight end, typical roster settings. I don't care.
No, I'm not drafting tight end.
But in these tight end premium leagues, it's a different story. Anyway, back to the wide receivers. So then the second bucket for me, Josh Downs comes in there, Zay Flowers, Marvin Mims, Cedric Tillman, who is an interesting prospect that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Trey Palmer, he checks a lot of boxes, but there's concerns there, and we'll get to that. So that's my second bucket. Once you fall below that, can I just rattle off some names? And I'm not really giving you a choice.
So I got to tell everybody, John sent me his notes, and normally he doesn't send me his notes. And I saw that he has, no joke, 125 names probably. And I fully expect to hear 125 names this episode.
Just listen. So this is the next bucket from 2021 and 2022, okay? This is, and you let me know if this sounds intriguing to you. So these are guys from the last two draft classes. Real quick, I got to give a shout out to B Hart, AJ, Greg, Kev. I saw a new name in there.
Mile High Stello.
Yeah, Fantasy AM. I like it. I like it. Bill's in there. B Ford. I think he posted whenever this episode was supposed to be on Tuesday, and then things got derailed. Anyway, the last bucket. John Mechie, and this is post-draft scores, okay? John Mechie, David Bell, Eric Azukanma from Miami. I know I butchered the last name. Romeo Dobbs, Tamorian Terry, Amir Smith-Marzette, Kyle Phillips, Simi Fehoko, Danny Gray, Amari Rogers, Velas Jones, Dwayne Eskridge, Josh Palmer, Calvin Austin, Nico Collins, Bo Melton, Jalen Naylor, Alec Pierce, who actually I have an issue with him being in this bucket. So I got to yell at whoever made this list. You know? Right. But anyway, you get the gist here. There are many more names. Sage Surratt's at the bottom. Antonio Nunn. That's not a glowing endorsement. So what I'm saying is, in the first two tranches of players, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 8 guys. Beyond that, you can keep them all. All right. What is John even saying other than that? I'm naming the players that fall in the last bucket from 2021 and 2022 in my threshold scoring that is only on the Dynasty Theory Patreon. Anyway. Oh, man. Okay, so what are we even talking about? Why
I'm not sure at this point.
The class in general. Do you like the depth?
The depth's fine. I mean, I think the depth's okay. You know, I think probably the reason why I'm more down on this class than you are is because when I'm looking for a big wide receiver that I really like, let's say like Drake London last year, right? I could buy into him. I can't buy into who we're going to bring up shortly in Quentin Johnston. I just can't buy into him. And so for me, it's like, well, I really like Jackson. And I like a few of the guys that are probably going to be playing slot in the league. And that's great. But I've always been able to find that kind of player that I could put on my fantasy teams in the flex for extremely cheap. That's why I like Braxton Berrios and guys like that, right? Because they're extremely cheap. I don't want to have to spend the 107, 108 on that kind of talent.
And that gets into, and we've talked about it countless times, and it gets into more of this class in general. And I can understand that because I do have a tier break between 106 and 107. And then I have another tier break at this point between 107 and 108. Mm-hmm. And if you want to trade out of those picks, there is going to be return that is going to make sense. But also, it's April 15th. And because we don't know, not just landing spots, we don't know when a lot of the running backs are going to go. That is going to drive the value of those mid to late first round picks. People just want a little bit more certainty so we don't get bamboozled by a pre-draft Isaiah Spiller. I know people were all aboard Kenny Gainwell pre-NFL draft. Things change. And with that level of uncertainty, especially with a class like this and the way things have been going, the NFL seems to be getting crazier and crazier on a yearly basis.
Mm-hmm.
So because we want that certainty, the value of those mid-round picks is going to rise. But is it going to be because of wide receivers, which we're going to discuss today? Probably not. So is it fair to say, is Jackson Smith and Jigba a tier above the rest of the wide receivers in this class for you from a dynasty perspective?
Yeah, for me, he is. I mean, we'll get to the next tier soon, but he is the one guy who I feel is elite at certain things. His agility is elite. His route running is elite. He's not scared to go across the middle of the field. I mean, I think what he's actually bringing to an NFL team is, I mean, I hate to compare it to Amon-Ra St. Brown because that's a 4th-round draft pick, right? But on the field, how they'll be used, if he goes to a team who uses him properly, that's like the one issue we always get to, right? We're like, look, we love Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to go do this. Well, that's if the coach actually uses him as they should use him, as we see a lot. Coaches just don't do that. So with JSN, for me, he's locked in at that 105, 106 in rookie drafts. And that's not going to change based off where he goes in the NFL draft. I just really think he's set in stone. If he could be my wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, I really don't want him being like my best wide receiver. But if he's my wide receiver 3 at that point and he's solidifying my team, then I'm in love. Then if I was a team that barely missed playoffs last year and I'm putting him on my team, I immediately think he's going to help me make playoffs. And a lot of rookie wide receivers, taking the last few years out just because of what's happened with the elite talent that's come in, usually that doesn't happen.
No, I don't want to do this for every player because it will be a marathon episode, and I think we're already on that pace right now. But for Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf or JSN?
Oh, Metcalf.
Drake London or JSN?
Drake. Yeah.
Stephon Diggs or JSN?
I'll take JSN at this point.
Tyreek Hill?
JSN.
Cooper Kupp?
If I'm an elite contender, I want Cooper Kupp.
And then anything here with Pittman, Debo, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore?
JSN.
Okay, so is it fair to say you would have him right around that 13, 14 range?
Yeah, probably.
For dynasty wide receivers? Yeah. Okay. This next bucket here. Bucket is the word of the day, right?
It is. There's lots of buckets with the wide receivers.
We got buckets on buckets on buckets.
So sadly, we only have like 4 buckets because there's like a great bucket, a good bucket, another bucket, and then just
a bucket filled with shit.
Big bucket.
Just a bucket. I thought this was the pivot point. So sorry for the cursing. Sorry, Dan, if you're listening. All right. Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers. Why I have these guys grouped together. These are the other 3 receivers that very well should be top 40 NFL draft picks. But even more so, all 3 could very well end up in the first round as well.
Yep.
So with these 3 guys, I'm going to come in and play devil's advocate one by one here. And Mitch, you can come in and support or tell me I'm crazy. Some of these cons, some of the negatives talked about with these receivers. Okay. Mm-hmm. Jordan Addison, we got the low BMI for those BMI folks. 40 time is certainly lower than we would have liked. Okay. With that size, and I think the pre-combine expectation was it was going to be a little bit better than 4.49. So that's going to be a concern because as much as we want to say combine doesn't matter, it does impact the NFL stance in the way these guys are drafted. And if there's a shift in draft capital, whether that's top 15, top 20, top 25, whatever the case may be for somebody like Jordan Addison, that is going to impact, and it impacts the speed score. And there was a noticeable drop-off going from the only show in town in Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett to USC with Caleb Williams and the other weapons they had around there. And I think people looked at that and thought, oh my gosh, Jordan Addison, he's just going to have a monster season. And by all accounts, he had a fine season. We wouldn't be talking about him at this point in the first round of the NFL draft if he didn't. But that drop-off could be seen as a concern for many people.
For me, it's Devontae Smith, we know, is going to be the comp for every lower weight wide receiver. That's going
Yes.
to be the comp. He's going to be what we do with inaccurate QBs and Josh Allen now. That's just how it's going to work. We've seen it work with Devontae Smith, and he stayed healthy. He stayed relatively healthy. So this is the question that you have to ask if you like Addison is, do you believe that he could win the same way that Devontae Smith wins? I just think Devontae Smith is better than Jordan Addison. I think he was a better talent coming out of college than Jordan Addison. So that's why I just think, like you brought up, there's the bucket with JSN and then there's the bucket with these guys because there are a lot of cons. And so for me, I'm going to be trying to trade out of the 108, 109 spots and probably trying to get maybe, at draft time, we know these rookie picks are going to gain value. Maybe I can get a Tyreek Hill for that. Maybe I can get a Stefan Diggs. If I could get that older elite wide receiver, that's what I'm going to be doing with Addison and Quentin Johnston.
And we're going to see a shift in we kind of talked about this already, but the value of those picks, because Zach Charbonnet gets a prime landing spot in the second round of the NFL draft. Managers start to look at their teams and say, oh crap, I need a quarterback. Will Levis now gets bumped. Hendon Hooker, he goes at the back end of the first round of the NFL draft. Now he's bumped up. So those picks with the level of uncertainty, as I said, it's April 15th. Give it some time. Bill in the chat, super duper flex. Do you think some of the wide receivers get pushed up in rookie drafts because drafters freak out about running back landing spots? I think it's more going to come down to the draft capital, to be honest. If we get, and I am of the belief, we are over 6.5 running backs, and don't make the Devon A chain joke about him being the half running back. But I believe we see 7 running backs go in the first 3 rounds. And if we see that, it's actually, I think, going to create more value with the wide receivers going late first, early second. With Addison, we talk about the negatives, the cons. From an analytical perspective, boxes that he checks that I want to see. Early declare, which makes sense because obviously there is talent and you're not going to come out early if the chances are you're going to plummet down draft boards, especially for wide receivers. Max reception market share, we saw a tremendous upside in production here in Pittsburgh. Receiving yard market share, receiving yards per team pass attempt, checks that box. Contested target percentage in his final year, he's under 12%. All right. So he is getting open. He is creating separation. College dominator, breakout age 18, 30% threshold for breakout age 19. It's just that speed score is atrocious because of the coming in super tiny and coming in at 4.49. Okay. Quentin Johnston, cons. Big body receiver, doesn't always play like it. Highest contested target rate in 2022 of all the first or second round wide receivers. That's expectation at 23%. Maybe he plays faster, but a 4.52 is not exactly what we wanted to see at the NFL Combine. Did he run in the Combine or was that Pro Day?
Yeah, it was Pro Day. Yep,
yeah, I caught myself as I said that. And then he barely cracked a 20% max reception market share throughout college. Is that because he wasn't getting open? And you have quarterbacks, we all know it. There's quarterbacks that want to take on less risk, that just like I do with my dynasty portfolio, and not throw into tight windows. So if Quentin Johnston gets into a situation where you have a quarterback that's like that, if he's not getting open, he's not getting the ball, right? So the separation is going to be the main talking point for Quentin Johnston, I believe, throughout this entire rookie draft process.
I've been down on him since the beginning. I mean, we've had quite a few discussions about him on the show already. And my thing is, he also has drops too, right? It's not just he can't get open. He also drops the ball. And so everything that you hear about him is his ceiling is the highest of anyone's in the class, right? But I also think that he's a lot like Richardson, to where his floor is like basement level floor and it could just drop out on you. I look at it this way: if you can't get open a lot in college, How in the world are you going to do it in the NFL? I mean, where he was playing in the Big 12, he was going against maybe one, maybe two, maybe three good cornerbacks, right? When he goes to the NFL, he's going to be playing against the elite of the elite of the elite cornerbacks. And I just don't believe so far, based off his college shape and everything that you see, that he is going to be an elite wide receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying that he's going to be a bust. I'm not saying that, maybe he ends up being a really good wide receiver too. But that's not what I'm looking for when I'm spending the 109 draft pick on him, or the 110 or something like that. I want to have at least that hope that he could be really good. Christian Watson was around there maybe a little bit later in drafts last year. Christian Watson had that speed, though. He at least can take the top off that defense. And that's kind of what I want in those kind of draft picks. Like, here's his elite talent. When I look at Quentin Johnston, I can't tell you what elite talent he has besides he's taller than other wide receivers in this class.
If you're looking at Quentin Johnston in your rookie drafts, and maybe you have somebody that's looking to move up to that pick once it's on the clock, you could probably go out and get with far less risk because of the plus you're getting. I think you could get a plus with a Jahan Dotson. I think you could get a plus with a Deontay Johnson. Hollywood Brown, whenever the time comes, you could tell yourself the narrative about Kyler Murray and that Arizona team. What's Hollywood Brown going to look like? Right now, he's only 25 years old. And you're looking at Quentin Johnston. There is risk there. And we see, it seems like these big body receivers that have this first round pedigree are the ones under the most scrutiny. Mm-hmm. Look at the roller coaster ride that was Treylon Burks offseason going into his rookie year. I mean, you get one negative blurb, he left a drill early, and then we get the meme in our Discord that he's the big marshmallow puff guy from Ghostbusters.
That was funny.
But there is going to be opportunities because there's going to be somebody that just wants to get younger. There's going to be somebody that wants to believe in the ceiling. So there are going to be pivot opportunities when it comes to Quentin Johnston, wherever we're looking at him in our rookie drafts. And the ceiling tremendously high, like you said. But to me, it does feel like an unnecessary risk. Am I going to have some Quentin Johnston across my 90 team? Sure, I'm bound to have a few shares. But ideally, I'm looking in another direction. And even more so, I might be looking to get out of the draft at that point. And that's been something I've been saying across my leagues. I'm updating my trade bait. I'm putting the comments in there. If I have 107, 108, 109, 110 right now, I'm either looking to move up, move back, or get out. I think staying put is what is going to be, out of the four options, the least productive when it comes to building our dynasty rosters. All right. So for Quentin Johnston, is he your wide receiver 3 today?
Yeah, but like I said about Javonte Williams back in the day, it's by default. Yeah, because there's no one else. Before you hammer in Zay Jones, Zay Flowers. Like you look at someone like Zay Flowers, right? He's going to be people's probably wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, something like that. We say JSN is a slot guy, but he's a slot guy like CeeDee Lamb is a slot guy, to where he can do stuff outside.
Right.
Zay Flowers, but if he is outside, like the coaching staff is doing something wrong. Like you can't have him get physically matched up on a big corner because he just won't get off the line. So with Zay Flowers, but he's the wide receiver 4. And that's why I'm okay with him there, because you're going to get him at the very, very end of the first or the early second. And so a guy like that, his talent, it's just kind of like the compare contrast between him and JSN, to where, Zay Flowers is that slot wide receiver, but he's a lot cheaper than Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be.
Yeah, I'm pulling up some things here. Who are we talking about? Zay Flowers.
Yep. And I'm going to call him Zay Jones like probably 100 times next year.
I have actually typed that out. I have typed that out multiple times. As you can tell, I'm still trying to find something. So lollygagging here a bit.
You're good, but So that is the tier, right? So we have JSN, and we have Zay Flowers, Addison, and Johnston, who are all going to get good draft capital. And after that, it's just, to me, it's going to be finding guys that we like. Like the next tier, when we get into it, it's not guys that I'm willing to make a stand for. It's just guys I'm probably going to like more than others. And I'll probably end up with a very high rostership percentage of them because of that, because people are going to end up liking Josh Downs. Maybe they like Jalen Hyatt. But for me, like, I have a guy that I love in that next tier. And so I'm going to end up with a lot more of him than the others, just because I think that's how it's going to break down.
So I want to challenge you here. I finally found
Uh-oh.
it. Zay was only running out of the slot around 30% of the time last year.
In college, sure. You're going to put a 5'9" dude who weighs like 170 pounds outside in the NFL?
Such a sizist.
I know, right?
But
I'm
the
turning
thing
into a
that Zay-
BMI guy.
the thing that Zay does give you is that after the catch, that yak ability.
100%. Yep.
So again, if a team uses him correctly, there's a very nice ceiling there.
Agreed.
And with Zay, I almost said Zay Jones. I almost just said it.
At least it's not only me.
But coming in at 5'9", you know, and needing that extra year to really stand out, you start looking at, well, early declare, what wasn't there. But then again, Devontae Smith used that extra year.
Yeah, I don't care about early declare much anymore, to be honest with you.
It goes into the equation. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not everything. So I love when you see people cherry pick it on Twitter, especially. Look at all these guys. These are the highest college dominators over the last X amount of seasons. Ashton Dolan was number 1, and he's no good. So the stat is we're not just isolating one variable, and that drives me freaking nuts. But he's not an early declare. He did check the box for reception market share. He's in the second tier, if you will, for receiving yards per team pass attempt max. But again, he's another one, just like Jordan Addison. Would have liked to see him with his size come in a little bit faster, but not necessarily the end of the world by any means. But the NFL is going to tell us they love this kid, and he's going to go in the first round of the NFL draft, most likely. And if not, early second, still a top 40 pick. So when it comes to Zay Flowers, it is going to be, will a team use him the way he should be used? And, you know, I hate it. This is lazy, but looking at ADOT, where he was above average in college, but with the yak ability, could he do something like a Deebo Samuel? Could he do something like a Rondell Moore? Hopefully with a little bit higher ADOT than Rondell Moore, because I'm pretty sure that's negative. You know, so looking at some of these comments here, I always like to catch up on the comments. Trade those rookie picks for 28-year-old wide receivers. Jeff, not sure about trading the 111 for Hollywood pre-draft. Hollywood's value is going to rise with the question mark. Isn't going to rise with the question marks. Quarterback in Arizona. So anyway, Zay Flowers, is he your wide receiver 4? Is that fair?
Yep, he is.
Now today, where are we looking at moving off of him for vets? Jerry Jeudy or Zay Flowers?
Oh, I'll take Jeudy.
Amari Cooper or Zay Flowers?
Let's see. Now we're getting into the how much am I a contender, how much am I not? Because I'm probably in that 112 area to where I competed last year. And so it's, do I need the young guy or do I want the old guy? That one's a toss up. I think Amari with one full off season with Watson will be pretty good.
We got the FF Dynasty guys in. That's got to be Jay.
I didn't even say his slander. I said I like Zay and I like where he's going.
I see Kevin in the chat.
Man,
appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
So, but see, that's the point we get to. Then we start to look at the veterans, because you have the younger, like, Zay Flowers or Jahan Dotson. Is that interesting?
I'll take Flowers.
I was wrong. It's Casey in there. It's Casey. Yeah. I can't keep straight who likes Zay, who doesn't. Come on. Okay, the next bucket. And these are guys that They could go anywhere between early second. Is there anything else on those guys?
No, I think we're good. Yeah.
They could go anywhere between early second and end of the third. That's how wide open things could be here. Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt, Rashee Rice, Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims. Based on recent reports, it sounds like maybe fantasy folks are a little higher on Marvin Mims than the NFL community. And vice versa. It sounds like the NFL, they might be all aboard the Rashee Rice and Cedric Tillman trains. And then Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, I think everybody likes them for the most part, except for Jalen Hyatt's route tree. That's always a question mark. So for Josh Downs, great footwork. He's small, but he's tough. He plays bigger than he is. He's the opposite of Quentin Johnston.
Exactly.
All right. An elite production. You could say, well, he has Drake May now. Sam Howell, despite his slip in the NFL draft, a really good college quarterback. And yes, that is true. But whereas we saw the drop in production from Jordan Addison going from Pitt to USC, Josh Downs maintained an elite production going from one quarterback to the next. Can I just rattle through all these first?
No, please go ahead.
And then I want you to take it away and share your thoughts, because if we're doing it the way we've been doing it, we're not going to get it close to an hour.
We got a while.
You talk too much, Mitch. I
know, obviously.
Jalen Hyatt, top tier speed, limited route tree, didn't produce until Cedric Tillman was out. But when Cedric Tillman was out, Jalen Hyatt carried the load, and he was just a tremendous producer there in Tennessee. I do agree. I think he's the most likely boomer bust guy, but a cheaper version of Quentin Johnston's boomer bust. Only 5% of his targets in 2022 were contested. Even better separator than Jordan Addison, who I talked about earlier in the show.
That's more the offense more than anything. I mean, that's just
it is speed. It's a speed too.
Yeah.
But I said limited route tree. It's not because he's a world beater when it comes to running routes. But he also gives you the high end speed. He can blow the top off a defense. 14.1 average depth of target there this last season. I would like to see him, call me crazy, a situation like the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
How much better did that offense look whenever they had somebody that was reliable that could blow the top off the defense?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Let's see. I've seen a few mocks high to the Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, let's get everybody.
Mocks. Yeah,
let's get everybody to the Chiefs, shall we? Rashee Rice, 23 years old in the American Conference. It seems like he might not always be willing to work hard enough to get open, except for he does have very nice vertical abilities. One of the highest contested target rates in 2022 of the prospects coming out. And, with his size, 4.51, better than Quentin Johnston. Better, I believe, better speed score there. So for those three guys, what are your thoughts? Obviously, a kind of a wide range for fantasy purposes. Downs, Hyatt, Rashee Rice, but overall,
I don't like any of them. So this is my issue, right?
Not down with Downs.
So while you were looking something up earlier, right? I was saying that this is the bucket to where I like one guy in this bucket. The rest, I'm going to let everybody else pick the guys that they like more. But for me, it's Cedric Tillman in this bucket, man. So this is, sorry, one second.
Listen, I always talk about GMA. I watch GMA on the reg, and they're talking about super allergies right now.
Oh, it's bad.
You might have those super allergies.
Easily could. But with Cedric Tillman is everything that I want Quentin Johnston to be. He just is. 6'3", he plays big. I think Cedric Tillman, if there's a bet out there on which rookie wide receiver is going to have the most touchdowns this year, that's who I'm putting my money on. He's going to go in and immediately play the X in the NFL. I know what he's going to be from day one. Any team that drafts him knows what he's going to be from day one. And I think that's huge. There isn't going to be, hey, he needs to learn slot, X, Z. He doesn't have to. They're going to put him at the X, and that's what he's going to be. And so for me, Cedric Tillman is the guy that I love here. I'm going to end up with 40% rostership of him and 2 or 3% of Hyatt, Downs, Rice, Mims, of those other guys, just because I really, really, really like Cedric Tillman. I could trust that I know for that early second round draft pick. Our projections, I bet our projections are extremely close on him because we'll be able to look and see what he's actually going to do on the field.
Okay, that I think your Cedric Tillman thoughts align more closely with the NFL view.
More than likely, yeah.
And I can't believe I haven't been correct in the chat yet. But Rashee Rice, the speed score, not above Quentin Johnston. Misspoke. My apologies. Looking at Cedric Tillman, now that is a better speed score than Quentin Johnston. Slightly older, 23, but not completely out on him. 23 years old as a wide receiver coming in, especially with everything going on with the COVID and the transfers and, especially with Cedric Tillman, some injuries. He didn't produce until his 4th year in college, but again, there were injuries, and then this last year he was dealing with ankle injuries. I think the touchdown upside, like you said, Mitch, it's probably one of the highest in the class. 14.4 average at the target. Very little after the catch in 2022. But again, I believe early in the season he suffered a high ankle sprain. How much did that linger until he was out? And then Jalen Hyatt really picked things up. So Cedric Tillman's going to be an interesting one because he's not going to check off some of the boxes analytically speaking, especially when you look at it from an age-adjusted perspective. So additional context for him, I believe, is required. Are you on board with Marvin, not Denzel Mims? All right. Deep threat ability, average depth of target 16.3, one of the highest this year, top 20 in the country for all FBS receivers with at least 50 targets. He was also top 7 in yards after the catch at 8.5. He can do it all. Are you on board?
I was really on board until, like you brought up, it seems like the NFL draft people don't like him, or like they believe that the NFL doesn't like him as much as we do. Now, if that's the case, we just have to look into that. If he ends up being that 4th round wide receiver this year, then I'm pretty much not going to have him on any team because, like you this year, I'm be hammering tight ends. I'm going to be hammering the running backs late in drafts.
Yeah, just reading some of the comments here, but I agree with Casey over there. NFL seems lower, analytics seems super high on Mims. I have him as my wide receiver 7 right now, and that is with the expectation that he goes in the 3rd round.
Yep.
All right, but if he would inch up, like somehow if he lands in that top 40 range where there is a tier break in terms of overall hit rate with wide receivers and their draft capital, as opposed to just saying 2nd or 3rd round, looking at the top 40, Marvin Mims would move a little bit. I think overall the fantasy community might be a little bit higher than I am. But again, that goes back to what you were saying, Mitch. Give me the tight ends and tight end premium, especially with this class, with some of the guys available. And then we're going to get more clarity on the running backs, and it's going to shoot these guys up the draft board. Marvin Mims or Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore.
Marvin Mims or Calvin Ridley.
Calvin Ridley.
Easy. Marvin Mims or Gabriel Davis.
Probably Gabe Davis today. I don't love it, but it's like if Buffalo doesn't draft somebody, then maybe this is the bounce back year for Davis.
All right, so you certainly would be a little bit lower on Mims then.
Oh, I'm thinking Mims like a 212 kind of guy, not close to the early 2nd kind of guy.
Okay. One of the more divisive guys in this class, Mr. Kayshon Boutte.
He shouldn't be divisive.
Age 18 breakout. Okay, he was tremendous coming in, but that was a long time ago.
It was. We've seen
a
lot
long time ago. Maybe some attitude problems, maybe some other off the field things that kind of dropped off, but there were rumors about, you know what I'm talking about, Mitch. And if you're listening and don't know what I'm talking about,
good for him. Like, I'm not holding that against him at all.
go look it up. Solid 2021 with only 6 games played. Says he's coming back in 2023, then U-turn, declares for the NFL draft. That's where some of those rumors came into play. Kayshon Boutte, is he being slept on?
No, not at all. I mean, he isn't going to be on one of my teams. Like, he probably has one of the worst RAS scores that I've seen on like a wide receiver that's actually being talked about, right? I just have absolutely. So I just pulled up his draft score, right? Just so I made sure that I wasn't off on it. And Kentley Platt, he's the one who's been doing it forever.
Wait, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I've gone back and I've looked at any interactions. I don't know what I did.
Uh-huh.
I'm blocked on Twitter.
I believe there was a day to where you didn't like that, if I remember correctly.
I searched tweets for Rass.
Oh, maybe he doesn't like you. But the first,
how's that possible?
Well, I've been in Uber with you, and I heard what the Uber driver said about your reviews there. But so here's the first thing that he posted up the Rass score. Here's the first comment. Any thoughts on if he tanked the combine, knowing some team is going to be picking him? Like that's like real NFL Twitter out there, man. Like it's just a different breed.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, he won't be on one of my teams.
Completely different situations, but he kind of has that Justin Ross type feel this year, where they came in fantastic producers early in college, and then things have happened. Things got derailed a little bit, impacted draft capital. Again, very different scenarios, but I think the similarities in terms of the way they are being viewed, like if you take his scores for certain things that I'm looking at and you throw it on Mitchell Tinsley, nobody's talking about Mitchell Tinsley. Yeah. I mean, you had a spotlight on this kid at LSU at the age of 18. So Mitch is spreading this false information.
That is not false.
Uber. Listen, my
okay, it might have been Lyft. Sorry, it was one of them.
No, well, it was Uber.
Okay,
but like, it's not a terrible score. Listen, you get some of these Uber drivers with big egos and giving me a low rating. Sorry that I living my life over here. You know what? I'm not sorry. Anyway, so Butte, I'm out on him. If you want to chase the upside, sure. There's too much going on there, and I can't get on board. Twitter hype. These two guys fall in that bucket.
Yep.
And I think maybe some of it carries over towards the NFL, but who knows? Nathaniel Dell, Tyler Scott. Nathaniel Dell's 23 years old. He's 5'8", $165. All right. He is a slower, worse prospect than Tutu Atwell. All right. So if you want to go
take him in the third,
if you want to go acquire an undersized receiver with a better collegiate profile, go get Tutu, who had fantastic draft capital in the second round, put up high level numbers at the highest collegiate level, not the American Conference like Nathaniel Dell. And then Tyler Scott, I think he's going to be on par with Alec Pierce from an NFL draft standpoint. Okay. I'm just reading some of these comments. You guys are nuts. You can tell the coffee's kicking in the chat
a little bit.
But either of these guys, like, do they stand out to you? Because we're getting to the point now where these are probably all guys I'm not going to draft.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, so we brought with Marvin Mims about how the draft community doesn't like him on the NFL side. Well, they seem to love Tyler Scott. So if we're going to dock Mims for it, you have to at least account for Tyler Scott now. And, I think the Alec Pierce is like the easy comp for him, right? It's just how it usually goes in college. And so like he's more on my radar than he was before. So now like I'm thinking about him in the mid-second, but it's really going to come down to where the NFL draft gets him. If he ends up being a third round guy, I just really think, like we've kind of hammered home this whole episode, is a lot of these guys are just not going to be on my teams because I love the depth at tight end. We don't know where Hendon Hooker is going to go. Maybe he ends up being a mid-second and dropping some more of these running backs down. So if I could just hammer tight ends and running backs and not have to deal with these kind of prospects this year, that's what I'm going to do.
I know you like Jonathan Mingo.
I do. It's true. It's true.
The Mingo ate your baby. That's a team name right there.
Yeah.
The one positive here, not that just one pot, but Mingo, he falls into the same category as Marvin Mims, and let me explain before anybody goes crazy, in the sense that he's a deep play threat with the ability to take advantage after the catch. And I that might be where the similarity really ends. But you had Mingo fairly high, if I recall.
I did. I had him early to remind everyone. I had a very early high.
Yeah. When we're talking about Mingo, if end of the fourth for me.
Yeah, and when I did my first rookie tiers, I had him the end of the second. I did. It's true. It's just, what if he goes to a team that has a very good offensive coordinator or head coach that we can trust? That's the thing with a lot of these late guys, is like, I just want to know he's going to a team to where I could be like, hey, that guy knows what he's doing. If he goes to the Cowboys, I want nothing to do with him because I think Mike McCarthy has no idea what he's doing, right? But what if he goes to the Chargers? What if he is their deep threat on that offense? Then I'm like, all right, I could deal with this. So with that kind of prospect with Mingo, it's going to be really be where does he land? And then maybe I can get him in the third round. I probably will always be able to get him in the third round of rookie drafts, but I will be able to pull the trigger there for that reason.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that he goes before the fifth round in the NFL draft.
Right.
And because of that, you look at things going back to 2017, you have Hunter Renfrow and Darnell Mooney that have put up top 24 seasons. And I'm not comparing the playing styles by any means, just the draft capital.
And look at what Mooney's worth now.
Right. Look at what Renfro's worth now. I have the overlay, Dan. Sorry, buddy. Nope, you're out. I can't do it. We have the overlay. Fine, get on here real quick.
Wow.
We split you in half. I love it.
Oh.
Now, look at that. On the fly, I got a new overlay.
Look at that.
You are clutch. I just came in to say hi for 2 minutes, maybe one wide receiver comment. I'm sure JB has one pressing question, something. My lawnmower wouldn't start. I couldn't mow the lawn. No. The wife's not home. I'm like, let me just say hi to the boys.
No, I have one. I have an important one. Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman? He's in like that middle tier of receivers that I have where third round right now. I have him in my rookie list, maybe higher third round. There's a potential. I'm a little more concerned about Jalen Hyatt than I was earlier in the offseason. So Tillman might be passing out Hyatt, even though I love Hyatt's athletic profile. I think we're hearing a lot of talk about Tennessee and the concern of their wide receivers. We'll have to see there. I'd say one nugget, man. There's some Steve Smith quotes out there breaking down some of these wide receiver talks, for our fantasy listeners. There's some good insight on this rookie class coming out from Steve Smith. Right now, JSN is the dog. Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, who are this isn't top secret, but they're moving up my list as far as this class is. I think you're going to come out here with 3 really solid rookies. And I know Quentin Johnson's like the enigma. I think he's just going to be more of a project, but I think he's going to pan out in the NFL. So I look forward to next week. Our next show is going to be our mock draft for episode number 200. So we'll get to dive in and we'll see which of the 3 of us, who's really high on what guys.
Are you staying on or jumping off? Because I need to figure out the overlay. What are you doing?
I know I'm cutting into your word count. I just came on to say I love you both, love our listeners, and I will see everybody next episode.
All right, peace.
There we go.
With my overlay.
There we go.
Late round wide receiver. Just throw a name at me.
What if I don't want to?
Is Mingo your guy?
No, Mingo is really the one that I'm going to bring up because I know I had him too high to start off with, but I wanted to make sure that I at least had him on my list. It's one of those things like, hey, that Mingo guy, I said he was pretty good, back in February.
My guy, if there is any way, any possible way, I don't think it happens, but he cracks top 120 draft pick in the NFL draft. It's Trey Palmer, 4.33 at the combine. Every year at LSU, he improved, transferred to Nebraska, and he put up top tier production, really high end touchdown upside, deep play threat, performs after the catch. but he is very raw.
Mhm.
So he would need to develop. He would need to improve in that regard. The things that I've read, even against zone, he has trouble finding the soft spot in zone. And that's something he would clearly need to develop. And he might move up a little bit in the draft because he does have special team upside. Not huge for most fantasy leagues, but we're in a few where return yards matter. Okay. And it bolsters up those low end wide receivers. But Trey Palmer, somebody that I have my eye on, again, tempering expectations, though. Okay. All right.
Final thoughts.
Sorry, I hit you with
I
the
was just
final
gonna say,
thought.
so a faster Josh Palmer is what you're saying here.
Yeah.
All right, final thoughts. I didn't even think about it, to be honest with you. Not used to that on our Saturday shows. But the one thing that I am going to hammer, I'm just going to bring up is, so I finished up with 2 of the team reviews for everyone that signed up for the year in the Patreon. We have a lot more to go through, but I didn't have internet for the last week, so it's really not my fault. So we're going to hammer those out. We're actually, John brought up a good point on if the people that we're doing them for are okay with it, we're actually going to post them up in the Patreon so people can see, hopefully drive some ideas on what to do with teams that are kind of, I don't know, kind of built in the same way that these other teams are.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's still something that is catered directly towards that manager. But like you said, hey, I have Aaron Rodgers in a similar situation. Here's an idea of what I could do, or whatever we're talking about. But I love the Saturday morning shows. I really do.
Same.
It's a fun way to start out the day. I was supposed to do yard work today, but I think we're gonna get some rain. Knock on
Nice.
wood.
You
let's
lucked
rain.
out there.
Let's rain. Really appreciate everybody showing up in the chat. Remember, next Wednesday, we're doing our tight end discussion, followed by a 2-round mock. Dan should be there for the full episode. Check out Dynasty-Daddy.com. It's a really cool resource. I sit in there and just go through different things. It's might not be for everybody, but if you have a larger portfolio, even a decent sized portfolio of teams, and you're looking at ways to manage it, it's a fantastic free resource. And if you're looking to get involved with the Dynasty Theory Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Theory, and free for this month, you'll get an instant refund, and you get to be a part of the 2023 NFL draft party. That's a lot of fun. Had us literally almost dying last year, pointing to me, but a lot of fun, and we hope everybody comes and checks it out. For Mitch Sorensen, you saw Dan Lamagna. I'm John Bauer. Have a great weekend. We'll see everybody next week.